Bitcoin is facing an internal war right now. Forget the price charts for a second. Because a fight between developers about one tiny piece of code could change Bitcoin forever, and some are calling it utter insanity. You've heard of Bitcoin as digital money, right? But there's a hidden feature called OPRETURN that lets people store tiny bits of data on the blockchain. Now, one developer wants to remove the size limits of that data, and it's tearing the community apart. Is it a smart upgrade or the first step towards turning Bitcoin something it was never meant to be? Stick around, because we are breaking down this complex fight, who's involved, and what it means for the future of your Bitcoin. Okay, let's simplify this. Imagine the Bitcoin blockchain as a giant public ledger book. Every page or block records who sent Bitcoin to whom. Now, OPRETURN is like adding a tiny sticky note to one of those transaction records. OPRETURN was introduced in a very early version of Bitcoin, but because of a bug it was removed. Back in 2014, people realized they could cram all sorts of data into transactions, not just payment info. This started clogging up the system, making the ledger book huge because of tokens, NFTs, and other ways to hide information. So the developers added OPRETURN as a compromise. It created a specific small space, just 80 bytes, like a character limit on an old tweet, where you could officially put a little bit of extra data. Think of it like a timestamp, a short message saying, I owned this document on this date, or even data for creating new kinds of tokens on top of Bitcoin. Crucially, these OPRETURN sticky notes are marked as unspendable. This means computers running Bitcoin don't need to keep track of them forever as potential money, which helps to keep the main system efficient. They know this output isn't money, it's just data, and it can eventually be ignored or pruned by nodes that don't need it. So, in 2014, they re-implemented it with 80 bytes. Then, afraid of spam, they reduced it to 40 bytes, which started the first OPRETURN war. And then, they increased it to 80 bytes again in 2015, and later increased it again because of Lightning Network. It's still small on the node's end, but very useful for specific tasks. Fast forward to now. A well-known Bitcoin Core developer, Peter Todd, dropped the proposal number 32359 on GitHub. He wants to get rid of that 80 byte limit entirely. Just let OPRETURN hold as much data as can fit within the overall transaction size limits. But why? Peter Todd argues the limit isn't really stopping people anyway. If someone really wants to store more than 80 bytes, they are using clunk workarounds. One common trick involves creating fake-looking transaction outputs that look spendable, but they are designed to never be spent, like ordinals and runes. These do clutter up the important list of actual spendable Bitcoin, the UTXO set that every Bitcoin node needs to keep in memory. It's like adding fake entries to your bank account ledger that you know are fake, but your accountant still has to track them. Todd says removing the OPRETURN limit would simplify the code, get rid of arbitrary limits, stop the UTXO pollution, encourage people to use the official OPRETURN method, which is prunable and doesn't bloat the main UTXO set, instead of those messy workarounds. He argues encoded data via OPRETURN is more responsible and costly, making it less attractive for spammers. And it would help innovation, making it easier for things built on top of Bitcoin, like sidechains. Think about mini blockchains linked to Bitcoin, or bridges connecting Bitcoin to other blockchains, which is often need to store a bit more data for coordination. He also makes a key point. Lifting the OPRETURN limits doesn't introduce new security holes and doesn't necessarily make running a Bitcoin node harder, because OPRETURN data is designed to be prunable. Why people are freaking out? This proposal didn't land quietly, it kicked a hornet's nest. Here's why many people are strongly against it. Problem 1. The blockchain bloat, the nightmare scenario. The biggest fear is turning Bitcoin's lean, mean monetary ledger into a giant, bloated hard drive for random internet junk. Critics worry that without a limit, people will start stuffing everything into OPRETURN, images, large messages, maybe even illegal content or malware. Remember the OPRETURN wars back in 2014? People did start spamming the chain with data, forcing developers to temporarily slash the limit from 80 bytes down to 40 just to cope. History suggests that if you give people an inch, they will take a mile, potentially making the Bitcoin blockchain enormous. But why does size matter? A bigger blockchain means harder to run nodes. It takes more storage space and bandwidth to download and maintain a full copy of the ledger. If it gets too expensive or difficult, fewer people will run their own nodes, making the network more centralized and less resilient. Slower the network. Because OPRETURN can take a lot of space into the block, regular transactions maybe can take longer times to be confirmed. Problem 2. Is this even Bitcoin anymore? This isn't just a technical debate. It's about Bitcoin's soul. Many believe Bitcoin should do one thing and do it well. Be the best decentralized digital money as possible. Anything else is a distraction. A slippery slope towards becoming just another complex altcoin, trying to be everything to everyone. They see storing non-financial data as spam or an attack on Bitcoin's core purpose and the builder side. Others argue Bitcoin needs to evolve and support a wider ecosystem. They believe things like sidechains and layer 2 solutions like Lightning Network are vital for Bitcoin's future growth and utility. They see OPRETURN as a tool to enable innovation without changing Bitcoin's fundamental rules. Lifting the limit feels like a major step away from the money-only philosophy towards a data platform model, and that scares the purists. Problem 3. Harmful content risks. Some folks raised a darker concern. Could uncapped OPRETURN be used to permanently store terrible things on the blockchain? Think illegal images or dangerous code. Because blockchain data is immutable, they can't be deleted. It could create serious legal and ethical problems for node operators and the network as a whole. There's also a subtle technical argument about how data gets onto the chain. Now, large OPRETURNs might bypass normal relay network, the Mempool, where transactions wait and go straight to miners out of band. Why is this bad? Because it hurts decentralization. Smaller miners might not see these transactions, while big, well-connected miners get paid extra fees directly. This widens the gap and pushes towards mining centralization. It breaks fee estimation. If lots of transactions bypass the public mempool, it becomes harder for wallets and users to estimate the correct fee to get their own transactions included, making the network less predictable. One user, Mononaut, found that since the last halving, over 600 non-standard transactions, likely data-heavy ones, paid miners 4.59 Bitcoin directly, taking up over 50 blocks worth of space, bypassing the regular filters. This isn't just random internet arguments. Major figures in the Bitcoin world have drawn battle lines. Peter Todd, the proponent, the guy who started it, he thinks the limit is pointless, cause other problems, UTXO bloat, for example, and removing it is just pragmatic housekeeping that helps useful applications. Jason Hughes from Ocean Mining called the proposal a betrayal. He's furious, thinks it turns Bitcoin into a worthless altcoin, and is angry that developers seem to be pushing it without broad agreement. Luke Dashjr, he's a Bitcoin core developer, famous for his strong stance against non-monetary data. He hates ordinals. He called Todd's proposal utter insanity and sees it simply as enabling more spam on the network. William from Botanics Labs worries about sidechain builders influencing Bitcoin core development. He's arguing the base layer should only focus on money. Jameson Loop from Casa, he supports relaxing the limits. He defends the idea that policies like this can be changed, and argues it aligns with how people are already using the chain, with inefficient workarounds. He also got hit for defending GitHub moderation, that silenced some critics. And the wider community is just as split, with arguments raging on X, formerly Twitter. Some people see it as necessary evolution, others as the end of Bitcoin as we know it. The whole situation is messy and full of contradictions. Todd says removing the limit improves efficiency by stopping UTXO bloat. Critics say it decreases efficiency by inviting blockchain bloat. Who's right likely depends on how people actually use the feature if changed. Bitcoin changes are supposed to happen with rough consensus. Critics scream there's no consensus at all for this, making things worse. Some key critics, like Dashjr, were temporarily muted or had their comments hidden on the GitHub discussion page, where the proposal lives. This led to accusations of censorship and developer centralization, sparking the hashtag FixTheFilters on X. People felt the process wasn't open, directly contradicting Bitcoin's core ethos. Does the 2014 spamming incident prove limits are essential? Or do today's workarounds prove the current limit is ineffective and harmful in its own way? This isn't just code, it's about governance, philosophy, and who gets to decide Bitcoin's future. The drama around the GitHub moderation really inflamed passions, making people feel like a small group of developers was pushing an unpopular agenda. So what happens now? Is Bitcoin's soul at stake? This debate is huge because it touches the very core of what Bitcoin is and what it should be. Is it purely digital gold, needing maximum simplicity and efficiency for its monetary role? Or is it a foundational layer for the whole new ecosystem of applications, requiring more flexibility, even if it adds complexity or cost? Peter Todd's proposal aims to clean up the code and acknowledge reality, but critics see it as opening Pandora's box, risking bloat, centralization, and a fundamental shift away from Bitcoin's original vision. The lack of clear consensus and the accusations of censorship have made the situation even more volatile. Right now, the proposal is still just that, a proposal. It needs to go through much more review, debate, and testing before it could ever become part of Bitcoin core software. And even then, node operators would have to choose to run it. But the conversation itself is forcing the community to confront these deep questions. Will Bitcoin stay laser-focused on being the best money, or will it embrace a future with more data? The outcome of this OPRETURN fight could give us a big clue. This debate is far from over. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our updates as this story happens.